with marathon runners, when they cross the finish line, if you took them over to the emergency room, they would present as if they were having a heart attack. That's how messed up their blood work and their liver enzymes are when they cross the finish line.
Brad Kearns is a New York Times best-selling author, former two-time U.S. national champion, and #3 world-ranked professional triathlete.
Yale University School of Medicine contends that 50% of all regular runners get an overuse injury every year, and that 25% of all dedicated runners are injured at any given time.
The truth from evolutionary biology is that humans are born to walk.
His BRAD podcast is a top 10 ranked Apple Podcasts fitness category show covering diet, fitness, peak performance, personal growth, and longevity, with Brad's carefree style and lively sense of humor.
And if you extend out to like 100 miles or beyond, the human is the superior endurance creature on Earth.
Welcome to the Primal Shift podcast.
All right, Brad, thanks so much for being back on the show. I am aware that you're an avid runner. You absolutely love running, and you think running is the best things humans can do to sustain optimal health, right? And so I'd like to...
Well, it's been a long journey, especially with my transition from being a hardcore endurance athlete in my youth and competing on the professional triathlon circuit for 9 years, traveling all over the world and training my butt off and racing like crazy in this extreme endurance sport. And today, as I near the age of 60, I can't wait to bump into the higher age group. I'm obsessed with sprinting and high jumping, which is so fun for us to connect on our previous podcasts, you as a guest on my BRAD podcast and me on the Primal Shift, where we talk about that background of sprinting and how beneficial that is for all manner of peak performance, anti-aging, disease prevention, longevity. So I'm completely embracing a new paradigm of fitness where I'm pursuing this broad-based functional fitness with power, explosiveness, muscle strength, muscle mass, and all that, which is entirely disparate from my previous experience where I was focused on going very fast in a straight line in 3 different sports at great expense to my overall general health and longevity prospects. Fortunately, that phase of my life was a nice phase of my youth where I raced from ages around 20 to around 30 when I retired, beat up and worn out, even as what would be considered a young man. But that extreme endurance experience now informs, I look back and I realize how ridiculous it was and what fitness really means, fitness for life.
Right. You know, and there's this book and the concept, I guess, behind it, born to run, right? Humans are supposed to be, we are born to run because of, physical attributes, because of, our ability to sweat and cool down, so we don't overheat. And there are a lot of arguments to be made that, we are supposed to be runners, endurance runners. And then there are those who say, well, actually, that's not true. If you look at our, physical capabilities, we are sprinters, we are walkers, we are, yes, of course we can run, but that doesn't necessarily mean running for hours. And I think where I'd like to kind of bring the discussion is because, there are those who are, it's like in the dietary world, there are the vegans and then there are carnivores, and they're, in between, people either don't think about what they do or they have no opinion. But if you have an opinion, it's typically very polarizing. And the same, I think, is true for running versus not running, walking, sprinting, lifting, high intensity kind of workouts. But I think there is probably room for all of that. You just have to understand, what's the purpose of, going for a 30-minute jog in the woods because you enjoy, how it makes you feel, right? Versus running 10 miles every single day because you're competing, for a triathlon or whatever the case might be. And so let's break it down a little bit. I mean, first of all, what are some of the reasons of the pros of running and some of the reasons why people might want to do that? What are some of the reasons why people might want to not do it and instead rather go for a walk of the same distance and just take a little longer, right? What are the pros of sprinting and some of the other more explosive, high-intensity type of workouts? And how can you, leverage all of those in a way that doesn't destroy you from a joint, back, knee, longevity perspective?
Yeah, that's a great setup. Thank you. And I think You're kind of describing today's fascination with the so-called hybrid athlete, which is so amazing for me to look at these achievements of people who are pursuing these crazy goals where it's a disparate skills of incredible strength and power as well as endurance. I've seen the guy on Instagram, Michael Maraglia, who is the only person in the world so far to deadlift 500 pounds and then run a mile in under 5 minutes. And he did the whole thing in 4:46, including the time it took to lift the weight off the ground and drop it right there on the running track and then run 4 laps. And it's an amazing achievement to develop those disparate skills. Now that's the high level elite person, but you propose the question of like, what is the average recreational fitness enthusiast? What should they do, and how should they allocate their pie slices toward broad-based functional fitness for longevity, which by and large would seem like a really great goal for most everyone, unless you have really distinct competitive goals. So when you were training for the World Junior Championships at 100 meters, you were not jogging 30 minutes in the forest, I don't think, or an hour, because this was changing your fast twitch muscle fiber over to oxidative. And when I was training for triathlon, I was either going for long distance workouts or I was eating or sleeping. I didn't have time or energy to go and do a CrossFit session because I had to get up the next day and bicycle 84 miles. So if we make the assumption that you just want to be fit for an active, energetic life, then it makes sense that you would kind of check off a few important boxes rather than dedicate almost all of your time and energy to, for example, cardio, which is what I see a trend in fitness world. When you go into the gym, even a huge gym like you see in the big cities, there's like 87 machines stacked up in a giant floor space. And then you go, oh, where's the weights? And they're crammed into the corner where everybody's bumping into each other doing the machines. And it kind of should be the opposite, especially when you can exercise outdoors. But anyway, a lot of people are spending a lot of calories and a lot of sweat building their cardiovascular fitness with steady state endurance exercise. And
what does it mean, steady state?
A steady state meaning like you're maintaining the same heart rate or the same pace throughout the workout. And so like in the running community, the group meets up on Tuesday night and they say, hey, let's run 8-minute pace per mile. And we're going to do the 5-mile loop through the park. And so it's the heart beating in a metronomic manner for the duration of the workout, rather than having breaks for rest, as you might find like in a sprint session where, you're jogging for a bit for warming up, and then you're doing 4 times 60 meters with 2 minutes rest, and all these protocols that we follow, for example, in a typical swim workout or a track session. So the devotion and the popularity of steady state cardio is what we're attacking in the new book, Born to Walk, that Mark Sisson and I have just published. You talked about, there he is, if you're watching on video, he's given us a cameo on the video. That's great. But you also mentioned the 2009 best-selling book titled Born to Run. And this was a really great story told by Christopher McDougall. It's been a perennial bestseller for many years, and it glorified our natural genetic attributes for extreme endurance performance. And indeed, you mentioned being bipedal, being able to have cooling mechanisms to sweat. We have non-opposable toes, the toe pointing forward. We have the Achilles tendon, which our ape cousins do not. A primatologist, Bill Sellers, called the Achilles tendon the primary evolutionary adaptation that allows the human to be human and to be able to carry on for long distances. There's a cute YouTube video where they have a simulated race with all the different animals. And so the cheetah, the horse, the antelope, the human, they all line up on the starting line. And you can see as the video goes, the cheetah is kicking everybody's butt for 200 meters. But then when you get up to a mile, the antelope is the fastest. And if you extend out to like 100 miles or beyond, the human is the superior endurance creature on Earth. They have 100-mile races here in California where the horses compete on the same course as the humans, and the human record is faster than an endurance horse for the Western States 100-mile run. Now, we're just like you mentioned, we're capable of great endurance achievements, but that does not mean that we are designed or evolutionary adapted to get up and run long distances day after day after day in pursuit of completing a ridiculous event like a marathon. And the marathon has been glorified for many years as the ultimate achievement in the running community, but it's far too long for almost everyone on the planet today to train for in a healthy manner and even contest. And so what you see with marathon runners, when they cross the finish line, if you took them over to the emergency room, they would present as if they were having a heart attack. That's how messed up their blood work and their liver enzymes are when they cross the finish line. So they've basically destroyed their body in the name of getting this finisher medal and saying that they're able to run 26.2 miles. I mean, if it's a bucket list achievement, I see the smiling faces. I see people overcoming challenges and accomplishing something awesome for their body. But we'd all be better off if the marathon were only 13.1 miles instead of 26.2. It's just too extreme to align with health.
We need to interrupt this episode for a quick shout out to our sponsor, OneSkin, because let's be honest, nobody wants the skin cells checking out early. It's called cell senescence, when your cells basically start acting old and sluggish. And OneSkin's OS1 peptide is clinically proven to help slow that down. Plus, it's free of those nasty chemicals you'd rather not have hanging around. If you're ready to give your skin some extra love, head over to oneskin.co, that's oneskin.co, and use code MKUMMER for 15% off. Now back to our regular scheduled program before any more cells decide to retire.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So, and here is the thing for people who are incredibly motivated to do hard things. I mean, something as simple as, jumping into ice cold water, right? A lot of people, think they cannot do it, or they don't have the mental capacity or, the physiological response to the cold, whatever the case might be. And then those who overcome that and jump in, it's like an accomplishment. And for me, I think that's a good thing, right? How do you figure out when one of those good things is maybe not that good anymore? Because getting into ice water, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to gasp, you're going to feel terrible. You get out and nothing is broken. You're still good. You're probably better off than you were before, right?
Yeah,
but that's different to running a marathon, right? And accomplishing that and feeling good about it because there is a consequence to that.
What you're describing with the cold plunge is an appropriately brief, natural stressor and fight or flight stimulation. And we become stronger and more resilient, both physically and mentally, from these appropriate stressors, such as a 47-minute CrossFit session or an all-out one lap around the track, 400 meters, as my race coming up and my first track meet of the year is going to be. I dread it. It's painful, but it's over and so quickly. And so I become a fitter, more resilient, more confident person. All that's wonderful. And then we compare and contrast to the chronic stressors of modern life. So sitting in the traffic jam and getting frustrated, having a dysfunctional relationship where you're arguing on a daily basis, or running too many miles at slightly to significantly too high of a heart rate, such that you are adding more chronic stress piled on top of a lifestyle that is already chronically stressful. And that's when you break down and have suppressed immune function. And by the way, one of the biggest goals that most endurance athletes share is dropping excess body fat, most fitness enthusiasts. And it is actually proven that long distance running does not contribute to the reduction of excess body fat. Instead, it sends the genetic signals for fat storage, especially the accumulation of visceral fat, because visceral fat comes on when you have that chronic overproduction of stress hormones. And not only does it promote the accumulation of visceral fat, it promotes the loss of lean muscle mass, and it suppresses the adaptive hormones like testosterone and estrogen so that you're not as healthy and vibrant as you can be, all from an inappropriate approach to endurance training.
But what would you say then if someone says, well, but if I go for a run for half an hour, it just makes me feel good. I get, a rush of all those feel good hormones, how does that then play with what you said, the release of maybe cortisol or other stress, associated hormones that, put you at the end of the day into a, stressful situation rather than in a, feel good situation. Is there a threshold? Like, is there a point in time where you're switching over from the feel good to the chronic stress?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're going to look at this with a big picture perspective. So the damage and the destruction is caused by patterns that become overly stressful. So we are all allowed to pursue outlets and physical exertion and get those endorphins flowing after. But we do have to realize what the endorphin rush is all about. And you're probably familiar, listeners, with the endorphins are the feel-good chemicals that are actual very strong. Endogenous morphine is where the term comes from. They're very strong chemicals that give you a sense of euphoria and dulling of sensations of pain after you push yourself with a hard physical effort. So the harder and longer the effort, the more endorphins flood your bloodstream and give you this chemical high. And so if you start chasing the endorphin high on the regular, you transition from someone who's engaged in healthy lifestyle practices to many symptoms of an addict. How do you know if you're an addict to exercise? The definition of addiction is where the addict needs a hit, a dose, in order to feel normal. It's not this notion that the guy on the street is looking to get high because he likes to get high. After a while, when you're in the throes of addiction, you need a drink or the drug in order to feel normal. And if you don't get it, you feel terrible. So if you're an exerciser out there listening, watching, thinking, I feel moody, cranky, and irritable if I don't get my workout in every single day, you are now tiptoeing into the area of addict. Same for if you are chasing this endorphin high and you are demonstrably going for that chemical sensation after the workout as a reliable way to kind of disengage from the stress and frustration that you're facing during the day. So it has to be very carefully managed. But of course, the endorphin high is allowed. Once in a while would be ideal, just like going out and having a few extra drinks with your buddies because they're visiting in town. You haven't seen them in 20 years, and you're going to get an alcohol buzz that's beyond that threshold of healthy if you were to do it
Right.
frequently, right? So that's where extreme or grueling exercise should fall into the picture rather than, and we see this in the CrossFit community too, where people, they love CrossFit. It's a super challenging workout. People are clapping your name at the end. Come on, Mike, you got this. Boom, boom. And you're going and doing that 3, 4, 5 days a week is different than managing your resources and your energy and going for the Saturday WOD where everyone's going to try to put their name on the board and put up a better time than they did last month.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So, I mean, listening to that, I mean, this really applies to almost everything in life, you know? I mean, there is a lot of the good things. There are people addicted to probably to cold plunging, to sauna bathing. There are, you know, it's very easy to use that, oh, this makes me feel good, so more must be better, right?
I wonder if anyone's overdoing cold plunging, like they're going 4 times a day because they just get such a rush. That would be super funny to like investigate because that barrier of entry is so tough. But I'm curious. You can probably be addicted to biohacking in general. And we
Yeah.
have this condition of orthorexia as related to diet, which is defined as an unnatural and unhealthy fixation on eating correctly or living correctly to the extent that if you can't find anything that meets your high standards when you're going through Hartsfield Airport on your flight connection and you get frustrated and stressed because you have to lower your standards of a meal, that's when you know that your commitment to healthy eating has gone overboard as well. So
Now,
back to that
yeah.
back to that question that I haven't answered yet, and where's the cutoff where going out for a run in the forest is healthy versus where it can be potentially counterproductive? And it's really simple. It comes down to, getting permission to run is all about this important concept called fat max heart rate. And fat max heart rate is the intensity level at which you are burning the maximum number of fat calories per minute. Now, if you identify this, you can identify it in a laboratory, or you can use the widely respected Phil Maffetone formula of 180 minus age in beats per minute. So what are you, like 30 now? Or you're probably,
Me?
how old are you? Yeah.
43.
So 180 minus 43 would be 137, would be your magic number. And 137 represents, with close accuracy, the maximum number of fat calories per minute. Now, if you were to speed up and go faster and your heart rate increases, of course you're burning more calories per minute, but you trade that maximum fat burning starts to drop in favor of a quick spike in glucose burning. It's also a quick spike in ventilation that's noticed at fat max heart rate. That's how they identify it in a lab. And so what happens when you drift beyond fat max heart rate, you have turned the workout from energizing, refreshing to something that's slightly to significantly too stressful. So it becomes a training session where, yes, people have to run hard to prepare for the competitive events of whatever distance, but you're changing the metabolic effects of the workout and the stress impact of the workout if you drift beyond fat max heart rate. Because when you're fat max or below, basically you're getting some refreshing exercise, you're out there in nature, you're emphasizing fat burning, you're teaching your body to become good at fat burning around the clock. And honestly, the more the better. So if you and I decided to take a break from podcasting this summer and walk the Appalachian Trail 2,200 miles in 100 days or whatever, that would be by and large an incredibly healthy thing to do, is being on our feet for hours and hours every day, hiking at a comfortable pace. But if we tried to go and break the Appalachian Trail record by pushing our bodies to the extreme, the average is like 52 miles a day, and the person did it, I think it was a female, did it in like 50 days or something, some amazing pace. That would be too much and be highly destructive to push the body too hard for hours and hours a day. So that cutoff point represents when you can have permission to go jogging, or whether that outing would be better served to be a medium or brisk walk. It's all about what your body's doing at the various paces. In other words, how fit you are. So we have a lot of commentary in the book about the greatest marathoner of all time. His name is Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya. He's the guy that ran an hour 59 for the marathon. He does the vast majority of his training, 83% of his weekly mileage, is conducted in the so-called zone 1 heart rate, not zone 2, which we all hear about is so wonderful, and you got to get your zone 2 and you got to get your zone 2. But what about the love and respect for zone 1?
Right.
The best athlete in the world is training at a pace that's so comfortable that it's like a brisk walk or a medium walk for you and I.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something to think about. Now, walking, if we have let's say I want to, cover 3 miles, every day, and I choose to walk instead of running. Now, my walking, even a brisk walking, might or might not get me into that magic zone, where I burn max. I don't really, my goal is not burning fat regardless, but if that was someone's goal, would you say, well, then, rather, run a little bit, then walk briskly again, run a little bit, or just run the entire thing, or forget about that heart rate zone? It's better, in the long run, to just walk briskly as fast as you can.
Well, if you have competitive goals, we have to simulate the experience in training. And so if you're training for, and you want to, excel in a 5K or 10K or half marathon or marathon, you have to plunge into this very high risk training protocol, because we have breakdown, burnout, illness, and injury that's prevalent in the running scene. There's stats that we published in the book that are just shocking and embarrassing. Yale University School of Medicine contends that 50% of all regular runners get an overuse injury every year, and that 25% of all dedicated runners are injured at any given time. And these are the overuse injuries, like the Achilles tendonitis or the shin splints or the knee problems, that put them on the sideline because of the constant pounding and the overly stressful nature of their training programs. It's basically, it's called micro trauma to the joints and tendons and muscles day after day after day, with insufficient recovery because they're going too quickly, as evidenced by their heart rate. So what you want to understand is, when you're heading out for the workout, in order to be an appropriate training session that's within your stress capacity, you got to keep it under fat max for the entire workout. So maybe you could run the first mile and your heart rate's still at 130 to 137. But if I asked you to go for 5 miles, what's going to happen is you're going to have to slow your pace as the workout gets longer, because it's called cardiac drift, of course, the heart rate gets higher because you're getting tired over the course of the workout. So people can mix it up if they want to do jogging, walking, but it's really important to stay in that aerobic zone throughout the workout in order to feel refreshed and energized and give your body the proper physiologic stimulus to become competent at endurance and that aerobic conditioning. And I think people mess this up routinely because it's so incredibly frustrating. If you haven't measured this, Michael, yourself, you go out there and see how fast you're going at 137, you'll be surprised how comfortable it is, because you don't really feel the strain until you get quite a bit higher than fat max heart rate and you're up near anaerobic threshold, where you're really starting to breathe hard and realize, wow, I'm really getting a workout here. So that's one big mindset and strategy we urge, is that, you need to respect the importance of aerobic conditioning, which happens at comfortable heart rates, not mild to significantly stressful heart rates.
All right, so you're saying that by staying in that zone, for me that would be around 137, I can actually improve my cardiorespiratory fitness.
The best way. Yeah. And this is not Brad on your podcast yapping about this. This has been proven by the performances of the world's greatest endurance athletes for the past 60 years, 65 years now, dating back to the 1960s in New Zealand, when this great coach named Arthur Lydiard trained his endurance runners with over distance training, where they'd run for miles and miles at a comfortable pace and climb the sand dunes for, these huge long workouts, but they were comfortably paced. And then the guys stepped on the track and broke all the world records and won gold medals in the Olympics, and no one could believe what was going on. This great runner named Peter Snell, who was double gold medalist in the Olympics, he shattered the world record in 1960 in the 800 meters, which is a race lasting for 1 minute and 44 seconds was his time. But he was training for over 100 miles a week of running. And that was the first notion that this over distance training, where you build this amazing aerobic engine, is the thing that fuels you to performances at the shorter duration and faster speed. Chris Hinshaw with aerobic capacity, he's big in the CrossFit scene. He's a former pro triathlete that I raced with way back in the day. He realized that his CrossFit athletes were so powerful and explosive and strong, but they lacked the aerobic conditioning to, for example, stay strong through the entire 47-minute workout, or forget about the CrossFit Games, where they're asking you to do over and over another set of 20 handstand push-ups with your 25-pound weight vest. You need that endurance base for anything in any sport that you're doing, and that comes when you exercise at a comfortable pace.
Gotcha. Now, if you take this, to heart, and you're gonna, go for that slow, comfortable run, and you do that overtraining, but obviously, if you want to compete, that's probably a good idea. But for the average Joe, there is still the issue then of, joint abuse, knees, ankles, lower back, etc.
Right.
So the truth is, if you want to do this every so often, it's probably fine. Stay within the threshold, but doing it every day is still a bad idea.
Yeah, the pounding on the joints and the impact trauma is a concern. Now, if you run with good form, you're not going to be plunged into this chronic injury pattern. But what happens with the running community in the running boom of the last 50 years is the invention of the elevated cushion shoe allows people to shuffle along with poor form that generates huge impact trauma. And these people are not fit enough to be running, but they are able to run because they're wearing the elevated cushion shoe. And so what the elevated cushion shoe enables is this very common heel striking, breaking, jarring, overstriding pattern. It's often referred to quickly as the heel strike pattern. And it's indicative of when you land with the tibia at an acute angle to the ground. So you land in a breaking pattern for many reasons. The shoe doesn't cause you to land in a breaking, overstriding pattern. It enables you to run in this pattern. The reasons for running with poor form are you're simply not fit enough. So you have dysfunctional glutes, that don't fire well. You have tight hamstrings, you have tight hip flexors, you have poor core strength, you have insufficient ankle mobility so that you can't dorsiflex the ankle properly. You have insufficient forward lean of the trunk because of your weak core. And so all these things happen from a sitting-based lifestyle or a lack of general athletic fitness, to the point where as a runner, you're shuffling down the street and slamming into the ground with this heel strike pattern that Harvard research, Dr. Daniel Lieberman, author of Exercise and many other great books, that one of the world's foremost experts on barefoot running, in his lab, he shows that you can incur up to 7 times more impact trauma with crappy running form wearing the cushioned shoes as you can when landing barefoot. And oh my gosh, this cool thing that we've done at our retreats and seminars is ask people, and I can ask you to do this right now, listener, the next time, find a smooth, hard surface like a really clean sidewalk, or perhaps an indoor gymnasium floor or marble floor down the hallway. Take off your shoes and take off running barefoot down the very, very hard surface. And what happens is, for almost everyone, you immediately exhibit perfect running form. You run like a deer with this beautiful explosiveness and balanced body weight, because you can't pound the ground with bare feet on the sidewalk, or you'll have immediate pain sensation after 1 or 2 strides of heel striking. You simply can't do it. So you will teach your body immediately, with your nervous system getting the feedback from your bare feet hitting the ground, to load the body properly and have just the amount of joint bending and correct impact and flattening of the arch and tightening of the arch and the Achilles tendon to help you spring off the ground. Now, I'm not saying you can now get rid of your shoes and go run 5 miles on the sidewalk, because of course you'll get injured and blown out in a matter of minutes. But the fact that we can do it when we don't have shoes on and we have that immediate penalty is amazing. And then what you want to do is like understand what that stride feels like. You probably have it wired into your brain because of all the sprinting, where you know how to land on your midfoot and balance the body perfectly for an explosive takeoff. And of course, you can take those mechanics to a slower pace. But for many people, it's an awakening to realize, wow, I can run light on my feet like a deer if I just think about my technique. I don't really need the big cushion in the heel of the shoe, because I'm landing on the midfoot like the human is adapted to. And that's when you can learn how to run properly. But guess what? It takes a lot of musculoskeletal resiliency. Therefore, most people can only run with correct form for, let's say, 30 seconds or a minute. Then they should walk, rest, and then try another burst of correct running form or jogging form. I'm not talking about going fast. I'm just talking about using the correct form. Then you can go out in the forest for 30 minutes and have a productive workout that's interspersed with a lot of walking, if you're interested in learning how to run.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Now, if someone says, okay, I get it, running every day for the purpose of losing weight, fat, improving my cardio, whatever the case might be, is not the greatest thing I can do. I want to do something different. What are alternatives that yield the same results and benefits without any of the downsides?
Well, we've been talking about this for 16 years now, when we first released the book, The Primal Blueprint, Mark Sisson and I, in 2009. And it's the primal or the ancestral inspired fitness patterns. And what evolutionary biology shows us is that the human is obligated to move frequently throughout the day at a comfortable pace in order to be healthy. And of course, the centerpiece would be walking. That's our quintessential form of locomotion. But it can also include all other types of gentle movement, a Pilates class or a yoga class, or taking the bags of chicken feed and spraying them on the ground and then stacking them back up on the shelf. You're moving throughout the day to be healthy. So that's the foremost requirement for human health, is increased general everyday movement. And then when it comes to fitness, we have those big pillars of resistance exercise, as well as brief explosive all-out sprints. And you don't have to be sprinting on a regular basis. Just once every 7 to 10 days is fine. Whereby strength training, resistance exercise, a lot of the experts are recommending a couple times a week, where you have a proper session that perhaps lasts between 10 and 30 minutes. It doesn't have to last an hour and 20 minutes, or any of these things that are risking becoming too stressful in a big picture perspective. So it's like putting our muscles under resistance load, doing something explosive. When I say the word sprint, you and I are thinking of sprinting down the track, but you can sprint in all different modalities where if you're not adapted to doing a high impact right away, you can sprint on your rowing machine or your stair machine or your stationary bicycle. You can sprint in the swimming pool and just tap into that top end performance, because that is the essence of use it or lose it, the natural law of fitness. If you can become competent in sprinting, you become better at all lower levels of exercise intensity, not only physically, but psychologically. Your perceived exertion is lower when you're out there doing a brisk walk or a slow jog, because you are good at sprinting as well. And you teach the body what it's like to really maintain that explosiveness and that power. And unfortunately, we lose that at a much more accelerated rate than we lose our cardiovascular endurance. So the elderly populations, many of them who are dedicated to healthy living, they get out there and walk. Like my mom walks a mile to 2 miles every morning. And then I have to give her the other news is that you're doing great. Congratulations. She's 87. She feels great. And now you got to get into the gym and you got to keep that appointment with that personal trainer to load up those machines and push, you know.
But someone might say, well, that's all well and good, but I feel like I'm not burning any calories. If I don't sweat like a pig, I feel like it's not working. It's not enough.
Yeah. I appreciate these follow-up questions, and I know you're getting some good content, because I'm loving your newsletters and your shows where people are now expanding their perspective of this flawed and dated perspective of calories in and calories out. So we know that the body engages in an assortment of compensation behaviors when the exercise is too stressful. So when we're talking to the running community who are putting in all these miles and chronically overproducing stress hormones in the bloodstream because the workout is too stressful, that's what causes the accumulation of visceral fat and the dysregulation of appetite and satiety hormones. So yes, indeed, you can go on your internet calculator and notice that your super difficult spin class that you did at 6 a.m. indeed burned 750 calories or whatever they're going to tell you. But over time, as you're lazier throughout the day, and as you reach for more pints of Ben and Jerry's as a habit in the evening, these are the compensation factors that take away from any attempt to drop excess body fat, which we know is coming. The main way this is achieved, is hormone optimization, you can call it. So that means staying strong, energetic, healthy, being able to burn body fat yourself because you have nutritious diet and you have good sleeping habits and you have stress management. That's the secret to getting the physique and maintaining it for the rest of your life. So the calories burned with stressful exercise are not going hand in hand with fat reduction. Otherwise, what we could do is chart our weekly mileage, right? Hey, I run 30 miles a week. I'm a marathon runner. That's this many calories I should lose. Let's see. Hold on a second. Oh, 47 pounds of excess body fat every year should be melting off my body because I'm running so much. And of course, we're now unwinding this story and realizing that it's complete folly even to measure the calories burned during your workouts. It's all about living that healthy lifestyle and putting everything together for hormone optimization.
Now, a lot of people don't have a lot of time or don't prioritize movement throughout the day enough. Ideally, you want to be constantly or almost constantly moving in whatever shape or form, right? For most of us, and to a degree that, applies to me as well, I sit in front of the computer for extended periods. And so when I then have time to move, I feel like I need to compensate for the time that I've set, right? And if someone has it as an 8 to 5, or if you're a consultant or whatever, traveling a lot, you spend countless hours in the office, and then you have that 1 hour in the morning or in the evening where you can crush it and kind of try to compensate for everything that happened or did not happen during the day. What would be a good strategy, for that? Obviously, we can ignore, or at least not go into, don't cut your sleep short to exercise. I think that's a stupid idea. But besides of that, just from a pure movement, moving the body, burning calories, getting the heart rate up perspective, what would be a good exercise regimen to be most effective in such cases?
Well, the first thing I would reflect on is the great research on sleep and brain productivity. And so the experts know, there's Stanford University research that we published in the book where your cognitive function declines after 20 minutes of intense focus on a peak performance task. It drifts away. And so if you do not give yourself a movement break every 20 minutes of hardcore intense work, the break will be taken for you. What happens to me, Michael, is I tend to be watching high jump videos. All of a sudden, they appeared on my tab from YouTube rather than continuing to focus on my book manuscript.
Right.
The breaks are taken for you if you don't take
Right.
them. And
Yeah.
so these little bouts of brain refreshment and physical movement throughout the day also help with your fat metabolism and your ability to stabilize appetite, energy level, and cognitive focus for the demands that we place on it. And so if you don't have time to take a minute break every 20 minutes or take a 5-minute break every hour throughout the day, you are by definition going to be slower and less productive. And the research on sleep is that if you, this might not be exactly the accuracy, but it's like if you are 20% deprived on sleep, you're 20% slower on all your cognitive tasks. So you have to stay late at work because you woke up early to get more work done. And so that's kind of funny to me. It's pretty easy for us being, immersed into the athletic and fitness lifestyle for our whole lives to realize this. But I'm really fond of taking afternoon naps because a lot of my work is really cognitively demanding. Starting from a blank screen and cranking out a 300-page book is no joke. And I need to be as sharp as I possibly can. And I will notice at 2:30 in the afternoon when I start to feel a little goofy or I drift over to the YouTube video and realize now it's time for my nap, because when I come back from that 20 or 30-minute nap, I'm going to kick some butt at level 9 instead of cruising along. The researcher from Britain, James Hewitt, calls it the cognitive middle gear. And the cognitive middle gear describes many people's jobs in essence, where they're just going through the motions and they're answering the phone all day. And I love it when I go like this. I say, hi, this is Brad Kearns calling to check on my appointment time next week. And they say, oh, okay, can I have your name, please? I'm like, okay, you're stuck in the cognitive middle gear, and I want you to get out of it right now. So I'm gonna wake you up with a few jumping jacks and some deep squats in your cubicle right there as we talk over the phone. So the first tip is you got to stay moving so that your brain can work at its best. And then another thing I like to discuss and recommend is this concept of micro workouts, whereby we demystify what a workout really means and how complex it needs to be. You don't have to get in your car and drive down the road to some parking lot to check in at the front desk and beep your pass and get a towel and go line up and get ready for this elaborate thing. Of course, that's a fun part of life, and people who adhere to a workout schedule is great. But you can take 20 seconds right now in your cubicle, even if you have no space, and do a set of deep squats. And even if you're fit, when you get to number 20, it's a strain and you start to feel a little burn in your muscles and you get your breathing up. And if you add these up over the course of a year, and I come back on the Primal Shift 365 days from now, and we say, yeah, you mentioned those micro workouts back in 2025, it adds up to a tremendous fitness benefit. So I have these rules in my life, and one of them is when I encounter a staircase during my daily life, I rush up it every time. Or I do fast feet, like the little sprinting drill, or I just make a point of sprinting up the staircase rather than walking at a normal person. There's also a hexagonal deadlift bar over in my side yard right next to the garbage can. So when it's time to empty out the garbage from the kitchen, I pass by that bar and I do one set of 6 to 12 with very low weight, so I don't have to warm up and do the whole protocol, but I'm getting a little bit of stimulation with the hex bar lift as part of my day. I'm not writing it down in my journal, did a set of 6 at 97 pounds. It's no big deal, but it's sprinkling in fitness opportunities throughout your busy day.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. And I really like those micro workouts, and I've I started implementing them, and then I realized I'm doing a lot of micro workouts throughout the day unconsciously. You mentioned before lifting feedbacks. There is always almost every morning we have to, bring a bucket, like a farmer's carry kind of workout across the lawn with the fermented feed for our chickens. And it weighs, I don't know, maybe 40 pounds or whatever. Not super heavy, but heavy enough that it's an effort, to a degree. And, all of the things I'm like, I really, that was one of the benefits really of raising animals, because you have manual labor involved if you want to or not. And it's really a nice contrast to all of the other things that I'm doing here in the office. And I think that might have started when we first talked, was it last year? It was, definitely last year, even the year before, I don't remember, it was a while ago. The concept of walking, just walking more. And ever since we've gotten, a lot of people get dogs, say, okay, they're going to help me work out more. I think that's a very bad idea, to get a dog to help you do something that you're incapable of doing, because chances are you're going to starve the dog of its exercise, because you're not going to go, when it's rainy or when it's not perfect weather outside. But I've noticed that, because I like to be outside and do things anyway. And now it's even more so. I walk at least 45 minutes, sometimes 1.5 hours every single day, just because of him, and
wow.
That,
Now, when you're walking, even as a very fit person, your heart rate is most likely double or more than double your resting rate. So you're getting a fantastic aerobic training session along the lines of Eliud Kipchoge running 8-minute miles at high altitude for 13 miles. So you're training for a marathon while you're walking around with your dog. And going and taking it to the next level and preparing for a grueling event requires more training and specialized workouts. However, when you have that base, now you're able to go into the gym and do those awesome CrossFit sessions with much more competency than if you were just sitting in your office for 8 hours and then going to CrossFit at 6 p.m. and trying to be a hero there. It's tough. And most people, if they have that insufficient daily movement, it dramatically compromises their fitness potential. And it's not that big of an ask to get out there and put in a little more time just moving around and pulling the stretch tubes that are hanging from your door. It takes 30 seconds and it's a great fitness stimulation.
Yeah. And I never thought about that, but I have noticed that, especially in the last 12 months or so, my work capacity at CrossFit has improved. Whereas in the past, I could maybe hold a certain pace for a 7-minute workout. Now I can suddenly do it for a 12-minute workout. I don't know, don't get too hung up on the exact numbers, but I know that I can keep or maintain the same intensity for longer than I used to. And I never connected it with, just something as simple as going for that walk once or twice a day, every single day, sometimes even wearing, the weight vest, to make it a little bit more challenging, and getting my heart rate just up a little bit, but not to the extent where I'm like, oh, I need to sit down.
Yeah, that's incredible. And now I want to figure out how I can achieve the opposite, because you're this sprinter guy who has the tremendous genetic gifts for power and explosiveness, and I have plenty of endurance, and I go out and do my sprint workouts, and I'm like, dang, man, why can't I break 60 for the 400? How do I get faster and more powerful and explosive? So you have that training base and that genetic potential, and now you're layering in the, to perform with great intensity for 7 minutes. Wow, that's awesome. But then if you can put it out to 12 minutes, that's when you're going to the CrossFit Games finals instead of getting knocked out in the regionals. It's the endurance to generate that power.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Going back to the book, who is that book for? For runners? For people who have never worked out in their lives? For who is it for? Who should read this book?
Thanks for asking the question, because we were trying to accomplish a lot with one book title, and the subtitle says The Broken Promises of the Running Boom and How to Slow Down and Get Healthy One Step at a Time. So it's kind of a 2-part book. And the first part is challenging our prevailing notions about what fitness really means and what cardiovascular endurance means and how to get there, and how we've been brainwashed and succumbed to marketing hype by profit-driven enterprises that are glorifying races like the marathon and teaching us that we're born to run and we should run every day, and that running 30 miles a week is a path to health and fat reduction and all these things that it's been proven not to. We also have a chapter talking about the addictive nature of high-level recreational sports, especially the endurance scene, and we see that in the gym culture too, where the fitness freak is celebrated in culture and society because their dedication, but it's becoming unhealthy and over into the category of addiction. So we kind of set everyone straight with these flawed notions of struggle and suffer that pervade the fitness community. And then the second part of the book is celebrating the benefits of a walking-oriented lifestyle. There's a chapter on foot health and foot functionality, and you had Mark Sisson on. He did a wonderful job talking about his launch of the Peluva shoe company that you're a big promoter of, and we appreciate you so much and your embracing of this barefoot technology. Compare and contrast to the disastrous effects of elevated cushion shoes that have had on not only in sporting and running shoes, but wearing them around all the time. So it's a multifaceted book that I think everyone would appreciate reading and picking up these great tips, especially with the last couple sections, we talk about what it means to have a broad-based functional fitness program promoting longevity. And that's when you get into the fun stuff of realizing, hey, if you're going out for a 30-minute jog in the forest, guess what? You can stop at the tree stump and do 5 box jumps and then walk it off and recover, and then jog a little bit, and then stop at another obstacle and do some push-ups against the fallen tree trunk, and get a more beneficial, broadly beneficial workout than thinking that you have to just peg that heart rate and stick to some pace that's too stressful to even help reducing excess body fat. So it's putting everything together and leading a healthy, active, energetic lifestyle.
All right. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you making the time and sharing everything you know. I know it's a lot. You have quite the experience, and I much appreciate that. And I link everything down below in the show notes where people can find the book. I assume you can buy it on Amazon or anywhere books are sold.
Yeah, we have a cool website called borntowalkbook.com, and we have all these promotional excess goodies where you get shopping discounts and PDF downloads that are really valuable resources. So it's a bonus offer if you start there and just come back and confirm your purchase wherever you like to order books, whether it's at the neighborhood bookstore or online providers.
All right, sounds good. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up. And again, thanks so much for joining me again today.
Oh, anytime on the Primal Shift, man. I love your show, and it's an honor to be a part of it.
Cool, appreciate it, man.
In the next Primal Shift podcast episode, we're cutting through the noise surrounding beef. Is it really a heart killer? Does it cause cancer, harm the environment, or lead to weight gain? We're tackling these myths head-on and uncovering the truth about one of the most ancient, nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Tune in as we explore the science, the myths, and the facts you need to know. Don't miss it.